My new work has been released. Welcome everyone to read my work in Tomato novel. I hope everyone can enjoy it. Your attention is the driving force behind my writing, and I will strive to tell every story well. Chapter 1. Escape. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the blizzard, a frail-looking boy was carrying a large firearm that did not match his physique, slowly approaching a piece of ruins. A huge robot hovered in the ruins. Many years ago, the upper class abandoned their so-called lower class and established a satellite city. Due to the crisis of intelligence, artificial intelligence launched an uprising, but in the end, the Alliance spent the cost of a satellite city to eliminate it. However, these were not the concerns of Qin Tianyi. He was just thinking about how to remove the batteries inside the machine in front of him. Finding a hidden location and discovering an opportunity, Qin Tianyi hit the computing core of the robot, and the big guy slowly stopped on the ruins. After waiting for almost an hour, Qin Tianyi slowly got up and took a sip of an energy drink that was about to freeze into ice. He quickly ran towards his loot. Qin Tianyi had just taken out the loot battery when suddenly the drone's wings vibrated in his ear. He quickly took out a pistol in his arms and shot the drone down, packed the robot's energy battery, and ran quickly to the shelter because he knew that if the octopus who released the drone found out, it would die very tragically. A machine with a head resembling an octopus and several mechanical tentacles floating behind it came to the side of the drone that had been shot dead. It stopped as if calculating something, and soon flew towards Qin Tianyi's escape direction. Qin Tianyi knew that those drones were released by mechanical octopuses for patrols. Although the Federation destroyed the main base of artificial intelligence and paid the price of a city, there were still many killing machines in the ruins of satellite cities on Earth, and mechanical octopuses were just the most common type. Many people in the shelter believed that the main brain of artificial intelligence had not been eliminated, but was hidden in unknown places in the ruins. Qin Tianyi also felt that these machines patrolling in the ruins seemed to be guarding something. The pale streets and dilapidated buildings all reveal the desolation of the apocalypse. Qin Tianyi heard the sound of flying closer to the mechanical octopus in his ear, and he immediately found a hidden house to hide behind. The mechanical octopus was several feet tall, floating in the air, with its limbs slowly swinging. Suddenly, its red eyes turned to the place where Qin Tianyi was hiding. Qin Tianyi secretly said something was wrong and immediately got up and ran towards the dilapidated building, because he knew that if he hesitated, the swinging tentacles would penetrate his body. Fortunately, the mechanical octopus did not have the means of long-range attack, but its agile body and sharp tentacles were already able to kill ordinary humans at will. Qin Tianyi took a deep breath, knowing that it would be a life-and-death battle. He took out a precious EMP grenade and pulled out the laser short blade with his right hand. The mechanical octopus has entered the building. Qin Tianyi ran towards the mechanical octopus flying into the building. After the mechanical octopus noticed him, he quickly ran to the nearby room. The mechanical octopus shell can defend against external electromagnetic pulse attacks, and ordinary firearms have little effect on it. To paralyze it, the only way to make an EMP grenade effective is to break through its shell. The mechanical octopus slowly entered the room, but there was no trace of Qin Tianyi inside. At this moment, Qin Tianyi on the door frame jumped onto the head of the mechanical octopus. The mechanical octopus felt a human on its head, and its tentacles flew quickly towards Qin Tianyi above its head. Qin Tianyi seized the opportunity, used a dagger to cut open the outer shell of the mechanical octopus's head, threw the grenade in, and then jumped off the head of the mechanical octopus, fleeing outward. The head entered a foreign object, and the mechanical octopus flapped its limbs, frantically attacking its surroundings. Then, with a muffled sound, the visible shock wave brought up a large amount of dust, and the mechanical octopus's eyes, emitting a terrifying red light, also lost their radiance. Qin Tianyi approached the mechanical octopus and went forward to explore, pulling out the battery that supplied the energy. This was a bit of comfort. He set off with a full set of equipment, now equipped with only a small knife and a handgun with only a few rounds of ammunition left. Although it has been more than a decade since the outbreak of the biochemical crisis, and most ordinary zombies have died, there are still some special mutants lurking inside buildings in many places, relying on predation of humans and other organisms for a living. The recent explosion may attract agile zombies with sensitive hearing, which are attracted by loud noises, such as the shooting of ordinary gunpowder firearms and various explosions. Groups of scavengers generally do not fear these zombies, while solitary scavengers are easily dragged out of ammunition and food. Although agile zombies are fragile, their fast-running speed and intelligence make them instinctively avoid attacks, and each attraction will attract more than one. Now, due to the recent explosion, many agile zombies have been attracted, and Qin Tianyi can already hear the roar downstairs. Qin Tianyi looked into the hall from the second floor and saw 4 agile zombies constantly searching for prey. Qin Tianyi jumped down from the second floor and landed on the head of a zombie. He twisted his head with both hands and with a click sound, the zombie slowly fell down. The other 3 heard the sound and rushed towards him quickly. Qin Tianyi took advantage of the zombie that had not yet fully fallen and stood up, kicking back a zombie. The dagger in his right hand ran over the neck of a zombie, and the remaining zombie made a begging posture when he saw this scene. He squatted down and raised his hands high, but Qin Tianyi did not hesitate. He kicked it on the head and did not stay any longer. The night was desolate. Wild is more dangerous than during the day. As the sky approached dusk, Qin Tianyi ran towards the direction of the shelter. Qin Tianyi had never seen the wilderness at night. In the past, he often heard of Gray, the old treacherous merchant who adopted him, mentioning after drinking that he could live alone in the wilderness at night until dawn the next day when he was young. Qin Tianyi also told other scavengers who had experienced the wilderness at night that it was already very cold outside during the day, and even worse at night. He felt like his tongue would freeze when he opened his mouth, and it would snow at night. Many predators would also come out to search for prey. Humans were just the weakest of the prey, and they couldn't use firearms. The sound of gunfire would attract more enemies. Close combat against those monsters was like hitting stones with eggs. Although they had armor. The bulky mecha like an iron can. To compete with them, in Qin Tianyi's view, wearing that kind of inconvenient thing was like seeking death on their own. The only one in the shelter was an iron can. Can is still the dilapidated antique in Gray's store, and even so, its price is still astonishing with 100,000 bottle cap coins. In the world of order collapse, the only universal currency in shelters, except for bullets, is the beverage bottle cap that was once popular worldwide. In shelters, a bottle cap coin can eat a sumptuous meal or a few days of clean living, or spend a beautiful night in the shelter's sales cave. And the spoils I harvested today can only be worth a few dozen bottle cap coins. When he returned to the shelter, it was already late at night. Listening to the roaring of monsters outside, Qin Tianyi did not stop and entered the shelter. Chapter 2. Shelter number 13. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Inside the shelter, a stale aura rushed in. The entire shelter is completely transformed from a subway tunnel to avoid radiation. Qin Tianyi returned to Old Gray's grocery store. Old Gray was lying on a recliner, swaying, with a chubby face and small glasses on his face. He heard someone enter the store and say, "What you want to buy is still for sale. I buy everything here and accept everything. Put the battery on your back onto the counter and say, 'Gray, I got it, but I lost the electromagnetic sniper gun.'" Lost. Old Gray roared angrily, "Do you know that sniper gun was bought at a high price from a black market merchant in Satellite City, and I lost it. At that time, when collecting batteries, I suddenly encountered a mechanical octopus and could only reduce its weight to escape," Qin Tianyi said. "You're really a spendthrift. What about things?" Old Gray asked. "In the bag, there is also a mechanical octopus core battery," Qin Tianyi said. "That's not comparable to my precious electromagnetic sniper rifle." It seems you owe me another sum of money, Gray said. As early as when adopting Qin Tianyi, Gray said, I never do any unprofitable business. It's impossible for me to raise you for free. You must demonstrate your value. I will remember every penny I spend on you, and only by paying off can I be free. Since then, Old Gray has taught Qin Tianyi many skills. This is a necessary investment. Every time Qin Tianyi asks about teaching him and raising him, Gray always says one thing. In order to live up to Old Gray's upbringing and teachings, Qin Tianyi began to go out to collect waste at the age of 12. At first, he only collected some supplies around the shelter, and then began to try to hunt down some less aggressive animals. Until now, Qin Tianyi is able to complete tasks alone on the wasteland. Old Gray sat up from his chair and carefully observed the battery brought back by Qin Tianyi with a magnifying glass. It's not bad, the battery still has 80% of its capacity, Gray said. After speaking, he packed the green glowing battery and said to Qin Tianyi, give this to Scar-Eyed Jason in the entertainment area tomorrow morning. This is what he wants. He then drove Qin Tianyi out and closed the door to the grocery store. Qin Tianyi stretched his body and walked towards the roadside stall. I'm back, said the black-faced man who was stir-frying unknown chunks of meat in the pot. I'm back, Jia. Is business okay? Qin Tianyi asked as he sat at an empty table on the side. That's it, it's you. Did you encounter any danger when you went out this time? I told you earlier that there's no need to be a scavenger, it's too dangerous. Follow Old Gray well, and after he dies, inherit that grocery store. Jia said. Perhaps I'm not the kind of person who can lead a stable life, I'm still the same, Qin Tianyi said. Ah. Jia sighed. Who would have hoped to see an older child doing the work of licking blood with a knife from a young age? Thinking of this, Jia also prepared the food and served it on the table. It's still the same taste, the same delicious. After speaking, Qin Tianyi put down a bottle cap coin and Jia said, you don't need to pay. But Qin Tianyi has already gone far. In recent months, many people who went out to pick up garbage at the shelter have not returned. If it were in the past, Jia's small shop would always be filled with scavengers at this time, but now the entire shelter has become much deserted. Just as Qin Tianyi climbed up the stairs to rest, the door to the room downstairs opened and a middle-aged woman came out. Coming back, the woman asked, are you in any danger? Just come back. Aunt Zhang, thank you for your concern. I have grown up and can now protect myself. It's about how Shiyan's illness is, Qin Tianyi replied. Still like that, there hasn't been much improvement. She just fell asleep, said Aunt Zhang. Aunt Zhang manages several nearby houses and relies on rent to barely make ends meet with her daughter Li Shiyan. When she was a child, Li Shiyan was playful and went to play outside the shelter with Qin Tianyi. However, both she and Qin Tianyi were affected by radiation, and Li Shiyan fell ill. It wasn't until recent years that she had some good days and could easily move around the room. Qin Tianyi has always felt guilty about this, and in recent years, his purpose of going out to scavenge is to find drugs that can treat Li Shiyan. Thinking about it, I fell asleep. In the morning, Qin Tianyi went downstairs with what Old Gray had instructed him last night, and happened to meet Li Shiyan who had just left. Brother Tianyi. Qin Tianyi turned his head and saw a beautiful girl wearing a pink and white dress standing at the door. Her pale blue eyes showed a joyful expression, and her fair arms, wrapped around her, also opened and rushed towards Qin Tianyi. When Qin Tianyi regained his senses, his soft body had already entered his arms, looking into his clear and sparkling blue eyes. Qin Tianyi thought of the description of the stream he had seen in his book before. In that beautiful light blue and clear stream, I saw the love of my life. Qin Tianyi, who grew up in a shelter since childhood, has never seen a stream, but he always thinks of that beautiful scene in his mind. What is Tianyi brother thinking? Li Shiyan, who was in Qin Tianyi's arms, looked up and saw him in a daze. Aren't Tianyi brother thinking of Shiyan? Upon hearing Shiryan's somewhat dissatisfied words, Qin Tianyi quickly explained, how could it be? I care most about Shiryan. Upon hearing this, Li Shiryan's face turned red and she immediately let go of her hand, running away and saying, Tianyi, brother, should go get busy with his own business. Looking at the distant figure, Qin Tianyi shook his head. Since falling ill, Li Shiryan has been depressed for a while. Now that her condition has improved, she is full of vitality. Feeling the weight behind him, I realized there was still something to do and hurriedly headed to Scar-Eye Jason's bar. Jason's bar is arguably the only entertainment venue within the shelter, located at the center of the shelter, but it is the most chaotic part of the shelter. Under the dim lights, walking along the subway line, there were many people suffering from radiation sickness on the way. They curled up on the roadside, with lifeless eyes and occasional coughs, slowly waiting for the arrival of death. Qin Tianyi passed through the crowd and arrived at Scar-Eye Jason's bar. Chapter 3. Bars. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Qin Tianyi looked up at his head and saw two crooked bars written on a metal plate that had turned black for an unknown amount of time. Looking at the door of the bar again, it was made up of two dismantled doors, and two big men stood at the door with fierce eyes. This is not a place where children can come, go back and find your mother, said the big man beside him, which caused laughter from the people around him. I'm here to find your boss. Qin Tianyi didn't glance at the person and walked straight to the bar door. The person's face turned red, and he looked around with a theatrical expression. He strode forward, one hand about to be placed on Qin Tianyi's shoulder and said, You, but in the next second, a pistol hit the big man's head. The people around were startled and took out weapons one after another, and the atmosphere suddenly became tense. All right, at least he's also a seasoned mercenary who can still be countered by children. Let's retreat. During the conversation, a person with sparse hair came out of the bar. There was a huge wound on his left eye that extended to his left face, and the remaining right eye had a ruthless sensation that is rare in ordinary people. With a cigarette dangling from the corner of his mouth, he laughed and said, You're a good player. You're the child raised by Old Gray. Are you interested in coming under my Scar-Eye's command, weapons, money, and women? I can give you everything you want. I'm not interested, Qin Tianyi replied. He knew that Scar-Eye Jason's mercenaries often went out to hunt down some scavengers, and sometimes due to uneven distribution of spoils, they would also engage in internal violence, with incidents of stabbing in the back frequently occurring. Although Scar-Eye Jason seemed to have a close relationship with the upper class, joining could give him the opportunity to go to the satellite city, and from then on, he would get rid of this dark underground shelter and leave this radiation and unknown creatures filled earth, no longer think about how to survive every day. But Scar-Eye Jason is not someone worth following, he will do whatever it takes to achieve his goals. This is the battery you need. Qin Tianyi took out the green glowing battery from his backpack. Okay, come with me. Jason picked up the battery and casually threw it to the nearby mercenary. Walking into the back of the bar. Qin Tianyi followed Jason to the back of the bar, where he saw a mountain of weapons and ammunition piled up. The things are from Rojas, and I have other things to do, Jason said. Halfway through, he suddenly turned his head and mysteriously said, We are the same kind of people. After saying this, he walked away without looking back. Turning around under the guidance of the mercenaries, Qin Tianyi approached Rojas and said, Jason asked me to pick up something. Qin Tianyi looked at the person operating in front of the screen and asked. That was an extremely ordinary face, about 40 years old, and on the screen seemed to be some accounts. Oh, hello. Rojas took out a bottle of medicine from the box behind him and said, This thing is very dangerous. I suggest you inject it after you go back. Well, okay. Qin Tianyi carefully took the medicine, packed the box, and left the bar. What exactly is this thing? Why did Old Gray buy it from Scar-Eye Jason? Thinking of this, Qin Tianyi took out the potion and carefully examined it in his hand. The tube was printed with the logo of the federal military, but the label had already been torn off. Looking at the purple bubbling liquid inside, Qin Tianyi shook his head and took it back first. Pushing open the door and entering Old Gray's grocery store, Old Gray asked, "Where are the things?" "Here it is." Qin Tianyi took out the potion and handed it to Gray. Old Gray picked up the potion and carefully examined it under the light. "What is this? What do you want from the federal military for?" Qin Tianyi couldn't understand. "Do you know about psychics?" Old Gray asked. "I know, that was after the nuclear explosion. Some people experienced various mutations in their spirit, strength, and wisdom during consecutive days of high fever, completely surpassing ordinary people." Qin Tianyi replied after some thought. "That's right, but most people who have high fever have died. The federal military has conducted extensive research on those supernatural beings and produced drugs that can awaken people. However, due to the high mortality rate and serious side effects, the military's senior management cancelled this project. However, the project's information is indeed known to some people, who are conducting secret research, including the 17th Research Institute, which is a place for the military to study weapons. After a lot of work through physical research, they finally developed a medication with lower mortality and side effects, and this is the medication that flows out of it in my hand," Gray said. "This time, I know you don't have the ambition to go to the outside world. You need stronger strength, and if you want to become stronger, you can try this." Gray placed the potion in front of Qin Tianyi, who looked at the reflection of himself in the potion bottle and fell into contemplation. "It's not good." Suddenly someone pushed open the door of the grocery store. "Li Shiyan is sick, Sister Zhang asked me to call you." Upon hearing the news, Qin Tianyi immediately ran out of the grocery store. Old Gray put away the medicine on the table, looked at Qin Tianyi who was running out, sighed, got up, closed the store door, and followed up. At this moment, Li Shiyan was lying on the bed, her originally pale face flushed with excitement and her mouth gasping for breath. Qin Tianyi pushed the door in and looked at the girl on the bed. "Tianyi brother, am I going to die?" Li Shiyan said weakly. Qin Tianyi approached and touched her forehead, the scorching temperature indicating that Li Shiyan was suffering from a high fever. Qin Tianyi looked at Aunt Zhang by the bed, who was crying and saying what to do to change. At this moment, Old Gray walked in from the door and looked at the person on the bed. "Say. This is a disease caused by radiation sickness and requires a special medication called Huiguang Fu reagent for treatment. However, this medication is not available in our shelter. We are in the 13th shelter and need to go to the 5th shelter to have a chance to buy it. Depending on the situation, she can persist for up to 5 days, and in 3 days, there will be irreparable damage to her body. It will take at least half a month to go to the 5th shelter." After saying this, Old Gray silently walked out of the room. Qin Tianyi grabbed Li Shiyan's hand and said, "I won't let you die here." Li Shiyan responded forcefully. "Take a good rest, I'll figure out a solution," Qin Tianyi said and walked out. Coming outside, I saw Old Gray standing outside smoking a cigarette. "You have a way, right?" Qin Tianyi looked at Gray and said. "Come with me," Old Gray said and walked towards his grocery store. Old Gray walked towards the table and pressed the switch, only to see the display cabinet slowly sinking in the hall, revealing the pitch-black staircase. "Follow me." Old Gray carried an oil lamp and walked slowly step by step. Qin Tianyi quickly followed along. After walking for a few minutes, Old Gray in front suddenly disappeared with the oil lamp extinguished. "Old!" Qin Tianyi hadn't even shouted when Old Gray's voice rang out, "Turn on the switch at your end." After a trial and error, Qin Tianyi turned on the switch. Suddenly blinded by the intense light, Qin Tianyi blinked a few times before slowly adapting to the strong light. Chapter 4. Departure with Full Package. You are listening at novelfull.audio. "I never thought there was such a big space below your grocery store," Qin Tianyi said as he looked at the huge room. The underground space is filled with various items. Firearms, bullets, explosives. Is there any medicine here? Qin Tianyi asked. No, Old Gray said without looking back, as if looking down for something. What are these things? Qin Tianyi asked suspiciously. The government seems to be warning of all disasters and has built shelters below various cities to prevent nuclear explosions and other disasters, which contain a large amount of materials. These weapons and ammunition were obtained from them, and the underground shelters in this city are built under the hospital building in the old city area. All of this came too quickly, and many people didn't have time to enter, so the entrance was in the basement. Old Gray replied. Found it. Old Gray raised an access card in his hand. This is the key to entering it. I didn't finish all the medical supplies inside at the time, and I should have needed some radiation-resistant drugs. However, there was a serious outbreak of zombie virus near there, and after radiation, it was further improved. Now it's a terrifying zombie paradise. If you're sure you want to go, just take this. After speaking, with both hands exerting force, he took out a set of exoskeleton armor from the pile of things piled up like a mountain. This was a product before the Great Cataclysm. Although it has been so many years, the energy inside should be enough for you to use. This place is also far from the old city area, and you need to pass through the tunnel below the mountain. The old city area is a forbidden area for scavengers. After so many years, I don't know the specific situation there, so this time there is a lot of danger. However, Qin Tianyi said without thinking, no matter what kind of danger, it cannot stop my footsteps. After speaking, Qin Tianyi took over the exoskeleton armor. Exoskeleton armor is different from ordinary full-body armor, iron cans. Exoskeleton armor is like a big character. Qin Tianyi fixed his arms and legs on the mechanical arm, feeling much lighter and more agile all over. He can run and jump freely with ease. Exoskeleton armor will enhance your strength and speed, but it is not without flaws. You cannot rely on it. Go and go quickly, be careful not to die. You still owe me a lot of money. Old Gray said. Qin Tianyi prepared the necessary equipment and got up to leave the grocery store. Looking at the departing figure, Old Gray's eyes flickered as if he was thinking about something. Then he muttered to himself, I hope he can come back smoothly. Just as he walked out of the grocery store, he heard, Tianyi, come here, give you something. Qin Tianyi looked over and saw that it was Jia waving at him. Qin Tianyi ran over and saw Jia wiping the oil stains on his apron. He took out an alloy short knife from under the stove, and the high-tech grip showed that it was not a product of this place. Is this? Qin Tianyi asked suspiciously. Just consider it as my coming-of-age gift to you in advance, Jia said. Men should learn to take responsibility. Finally, I remind you to pay attention to safety. After that, he greeted the other guests. Qin Tianyi placed it around his waist and walked straight outside the shelter. Arriving outside, Qin Tianyi quickly ran towards the old city area, running and running. It was already dusk, and looking at the sunset, Qin Tianyi knew he needed to find a place to spend the night in the wilderness. After searching for over an hour, Qin Tianyi finally found a basement. After careful observation, he did not find any danger, and finally slowly arrived at the basement. Although the basement has been visited, Qin Tianyi is only looking for a place to hide from predators for the night. The basement is spacious, the ground is in a mess, the cabinets are crooked, and Qin Tianyi has simply created an empty space, quietly waiting for dawn. Suddenly, there was a rustling sound coming from behind the cabinet. Qin Tianyi changed from closed eyes to alert posture, holding a knife in one hand and a flashlight in the other, and slowly walked towards the cabinet. The cabinet door opened and most of the contents inside were looted, leaving only some remaining fabric. Qin Tianyi carefully approached the cabinet, confirmed that there were no abnormalities, and carefully inspected the cabinet. Qin Tianyi knocked on the inside of the cabinet and found that there was still space behind it. Qin Tianyi walked to the side and pushed the cabinet hard without moving at all. Qin Tianyi groped in the cabinet again, and a pitch-black hole slowly appeared behind the cabinet. Under the light of the flashlight, there seemed to be a hiding place inside. As Qin Tianyi crawled into a small hole, he suddenly felt a gust of wind blowing over his head. He rolled forward and turned around to see an incredibly large mouse. The mouse's eyes were red, and sticky liquid flowed out of its mouth, continuously dripping onto the ground. He stared at Qin Tianyi and hissed his teeth, as if he had treated him as delicious food. Qin Tianyi was holding a flashlight in one hand and was about to touch his waist when he saw the mouse fly towards him. Qin Tianyi flipped over and dodged the mouse, raising his hand to swoosh. A blood spray splattered on the mouse's head, but he did not kill it, but instead angered the mouse. Accompanied by angry cries, the mouse's speed increased significantly, and then rushed towards Qin Tianyi. Qin Tianyi dodged sideways, lifted the silencing pistol in his hand, and aimed it at the mouse's eyes. With a scream, the mouse retreated in succession. Qin Tianyi seized the opportunity, flew forward, picked up a dagger, and smoothly brushed it over the mouse's neck. A large amount of blood spurted out, and Qin Tianyi couldn't dodge and was splashed all over. What bad luck! Qin Tianyi wiped the blood off his body and looked at the hiding place. The hiding place is fully equipped with generators, various appliances, and many unopened cans in the corner. On one side of the bed, there are 3 skeletons, seemingly a family of 3. Qin Tianyi checked the electronic devices and found that they had been out of use for many years. The generator was also rusty. He brought an unopened can and gently opened it, which seemed to contain some kind of fish and meat without any odor. Although these cans were valuable in the shelter, Qin Tianyi's purpose this time was not to pick up waste. Thinking of this, he placed these cans aside and turned to look at the 3 skeletons. What did they die for? Maybe it's deadly radiation, maybe it's the mouse just now. They hid here at the moment of the nuclear explosion, made various preparations, but in the end, they were taken away by the merciless reality to survive. Thinking of this, Qin Tianyi felt sad for these 3 people, adjusted his mentality, and continued to rest here. The morning light shone into the basement, and Qin Tianyi disguised his hiding place. He opened the basement door and took a deep breath. The cold air entered Qin Tianyi's lungs, boosting his spirits. He was ready to go to the old city area today and get the medicine. Thinking of this, Qin Tianyi packed up his equipment, activated his exoskeleton armor, and headed towards the old city area. Chapter 5. Tunnel Shock. You are listening at novelfull.audio. At the entrance of the tunnel at the foot of the mountain, a figure was bending down and panting heavily. Although exoskeleton armor can significantly reduce physical exertion, the long journey and constant avoidance of zombie pursuit along the way have left Qin Tianyi physically and mentally exhausted. Seeing the tunnel entrance, Qin Tianyi finally breathed a sigh of relief. After resting for a few minutes, Qin Tianyi walked into the pitch-black mouth. After years of abandonment, the lights in the tunnel have long been extinguished, and the roads are filled with scrapped cars. Many cars also collided directly with the walls of the tunnel. During that period of virus outbreak, everyone wanted to leave the place full of zombies quickly. The crowded tunnel and dense crowd led to the tragedy. Along the way, Qin Tianyi was walking with many wandering zombies. Suddenly, he stopped and several buses in front collided, blocking the way ahead. Qin Tianyi lightly jumped onto the roof, and in front of him was a mess. There seemed to be a collapse, and a tanker truck carrying unknown chemicals overturned on the ground. A faint green smoke floated above the green liquid, and a pungent smell could be smelled every 100 meters. Qin Tianyi coughed a few times, and his face showed a special blush. It seems that we need to find another way out. Looking at the green smoke ahead, Qin Tianyi shook his head, jumped out of the car, and walked towards a rusty iron gate on the side. With a creaking sound, Qin Tianyi forcefully pulled the iron door, which had not been used for a long time, with an exoskeleton, and the entire iron door was forcefully pulled out. However, just behind the door, a chubby zombie with a high and protruding abdomen rushed towards Qin Tianyi. A few meters closer to Qin Tianyi, he stopped and his abdomen seemed to be experiencing a violent reaction. Qin Tianyi realized something was wrong and quickly lifted the iron door in front of him. With a loud bang, Qin Tianyi was hit by the shockwave and fell hard to the ground. The fragments of the zombie scattered on the ground like rain. Qin Tianyi slowly got up and shook his head. The explosion made his ears still buzzing. After patting the debris on his body, Qin Tianyi cautiously approached the door. The walls were covered in dried blood everywhere, and no one had arrived for many years. The passage was covered in dust everywhere, and under the illumination of the lights, the inside of the passage appeared murky. Qin Tianyi gently opened a door, which seemed to be the management room of the tunnel. There was also a corpse sitting next to his desk, and the pistol in his hand showed that he had personally ended his own life in despair. Qin Tianyi gently pushed the body aside and swept away the thick dust accumulated on the table with his hand. He found that it was a map of the composition of a tunnel, which also marked a collapse in one part of the tunnel. There was also a sewer passing through the tunnel nearby. Qin Tianyi collected the map and was about to leave when he heard the roar of monsters coming from the end of the passage. The sound was different from the agile zombie sounds Qin Tianyi had heard before. From the footsteps and shouts, Qin Tianyi knew that a big battle was inevitable. Qin Tianyi took out a double-barreled hunting rifle from his backpack. In this dark and cramped space, the shotgun had a great killing power. Qin Tianyi twisted open a fluorescent stick and threw it forward, revealing the monster's appearance with a faint light. A tall human body with a metallic sheen on its skin and dimly lit eyes. Its nose only shows two slender small holes on its face, and its mouth is filled with exposed sharp teeth. Its chin cracks downward like a locust. Walking slowly, at the moment of seeing Qin Tianyi, he flew over and dodged to the side, carefully observing the monster's appearance. This reminded him that in the shelter, he often heard scavengers talk about a monster called a night demon, saying that their skin can resist most of the damage, and only intense explosions and strong light have a certain effect on them. The former can cause substantial damage to the night demon, while the latter is afraid of strong light. However, night demons generally do not act alone. Many times, scavengers can only use signal flares to temporarily dispel the night demon, but they will also become food for the night demon after the signal flares are used up. Qin Tianyi dodged while firing 2 shots at the night demon. The night demon was repelled several meters by the strong impact of the shotgun. Qin Tianyi was just about to change bullets from his backpack when the night demon rushed towards him. Qin Tianyi blocked the shotgun horizontally in front of him, but was still knocked down. Qin Tianyi used the powerful power provided by exoskeleton armor to counter the night demon. Through the shotgun, Qin Tianyi could already smell the strong smell on his body. With a strong push, Qin Tianyi pushed the night demon far away. It seems that he hasn't fully adapted to wearing exoskeletons for battle yet, Qin Tianyi thought to himself and then put it down. The hunting rifle pulled out the laser dagger from his waist, and by this time the night demon had recovered and quickly rushed towards Qin Tianyi. Qin Tianyi had just raised his arms to block it when he felt a tremendous force coming from his arms, and he flew out and crashed into the wall. This collision made Qin Tianyi feel dizzy, and the contents of his backpack scattered all over the ground. Qin Tianyi saw the signal flare inside and ignored the waves of discomfort coming from his head. When the night demon attacked, Qin Tianyi also pounced on the signal flare. After watching for a while without killing the prey, the night demon roared and accelerated his speed. Qin Tianyi received the signal flare and immediately threw it at the night demon. The strong light made Qin Tianyi and the night demon cover their eyes. After a while, Qin Tianyi first adapted to the strong light, holding a laser dagger and flying forward, crossing the night demon's neck. Although he knew that the night demon's skin was very hard, Qin Tianyi still felt a lot of resistance in his arms when cutting. If there was no enhancement of exoskeleton armor, Qin Tianyi might have to explain it here. After confirming the death of the night demon, Qin Tianyi took out a map and walked towards the exit. After looking ahead at the densely packed night demons, Qin Tianyi decided to find another way out. Following the map, Qin Tianyi walked towards the cramped iron door on the side. With the help of his exoskeleton, Qin Tianyi easily opened the door. After careful research, Qin Tianyi decided to head through the sewer to the old city area. There seems to be no trace of humans here. After many years, the sewer seems to have been submerged by water. Looking at the green water in front of him, Qin Tianyi swallowed a mouthful of water, took a deep breath, and jumped down. The piercing water made Qin Tianyi shiver and he gritted his teeth as he swam towards the exit. As the water level in the sewer decreased, Qin Tianyi quickly climbed up the channels on both sides of the sewer, took out a map, and found that it was close to the exit. Qin Tianyi started a fire and after drying himself, he followed the sewer to the old city area. Chapter 6. Old City Area. You are listening at novelfull.audio. With a bright light appearing ahead, Qin Tianyi's spirit was lifted and he quickly ran along the sewer pipe. After opening the fence door that closed the sewer entrance, the old city area appeared in front of him. Qin Tianyi climbed a nearby tall building and looked down at the city. He had never seen such a big city before. Tall buildings stand tall and bustling everywhere, but now there are only dilapidated buildings and abandoned cars piled up on the roads. Qin Tianyi has never seen such a city before. The shelter he is in is surrounded by small villages, and the first big city he sees is the fallen satellite city, but it looks more like ruins. Overlooking the city, Qin Tianyi had a special feeling. Looking at the tallest buildings in the city, after years of wind and sun exposure, he found the location of the hospital, which were several buildings located in the northeast of the old city area. Qin Tianyi glanced at the time and saw that it was already 3 o'clock in the afternoon. He didn't make any further stops and headed straight to the hospital. Flying over several zombies, Qin Tianyi discovered that there were more and more aggressive zombies in the old city area. After many years, many zombies had died in many places, but there were still many surviving zombies in this area. Suddenly, Qin Tianyi saw someone fighting against the zombies. Upon careful observation, he realized it was a psychic. After the nuclear explosion, some people gained abilities after being exposed to radiation, but most of them showed physical deformities. Qin Tianyi also saw many of these superpowers in the scavenger team passing by the shelter. Most of them were at the bottom of the team, and many ordinary humans were very wary of superpowers. Those whose physical appearance does not mutate or whose mutated abilities are particularly powerful are very popular. Qin Tianyi took out his pistol and fired a shot at the zombie that was about to bite the person's shoulder. The psychic escaped from the zombie's encirclement and turned to look at Qin Tianyi gratefully. Looking at the fleeing figure, Qin Tianyi didn't feel in the mood to control the psychic and turned his head towards the hospital. Flipping over a car, Qin Tianyi finally arrived at the entrance of the hospital. Looking at the collapsed hospital building, Qin Tianyi was unsure if he could enter the underground. A voice came from behind. "Don't go ahead, it's a restricted area. I saw many people entering there, but they never walked out of there after entering." The psychic that Qin Tianyi just saved appeared on the roof of the car, pointing in the direction of the hospital and saying. After speaking, he ran away without a trace. Qin Tianyi looked towards the building. Although it was daytime, the interior of the hospital was still pitch black. The dilapidated door opened casually, as if a big mouth was waiting for him to enter. Qin Tianyi knew he had no choice, so he prepared to enter the hospital. After years of no maintenance, the hospital floor was covered with various unknown plants, and walking on it felt light and ethereal. When we arrived at the hospital hall, the signs were already blurry, and Qin Tianyi could only explore around. At the end of the corridor came the cries of children, which seemed particularly eerie in this empty hospital. Qin Tianyi walked gently towards the room where crying was coming from, and behind the decaying wooden door, Qin Tianyi gently opened the door. In the center of the room, a child was sitting with his head down crying. Qin Tianyi was about to sneak in when the child spotted him and turned to look over. Qin Tianyi realized that he had been spotted and immediately took out a dagger and pistol to look at the child with caution. The monster, resembling a child, stopped crying and turned back to reveal its face. The big eyes that occupied half of its face were fixed on Qin Tianyi, with a strange smile on its lips. Then, a mournful cry came from its mouth. The sound seemed to penetrate through the eardrums and directly enter Qin Tianyi's head. Qin Tianyi was so stimulated by the call that he could only cover his ears and kneel on the ground in pain. Qin Tianyi felt swelling in his ears and his head was groggy. He knew he was about to give up, but his heart was filled with anger. How could he fall here and be killed by such a monster? Qin Suo instinctively put down his hands and rushed towards the monster in 3 or 2 steps. The monster felt danger and called out with even more penetrating power. Just as Qin Tianyi was about to lose his grip, his hand grabbed the monster's neck, instantly feeling that the world was quiet. Qin Tianyi looked at the struggling monster and pinched his head with one hand. With a click sound, the monster lay soft and limp on the ground. Qin Tianyi suddenly remembered that Old Gray had mentioned before that there were some special infected individuals in the hospital, whose strength may not be strong, but various special abilities could give fatal blows to the first encounter. This monster should be what Old Gray called the Scream, which can make sharp screams to affect or kill prey. In addition, there are also ghosts who can become invisible, vomiting people who can vomit strong acid, and so on. Solved the Screamer, Qin Tianyi checked around and couldn't find the entrance to the basement. It didn't seem to be here. After killing several wandering agile zombies, Qin Tianyi arrived at an iron gate, which was the only place that had not been searched. Qin Tianyi pressed his ear against it, and there was nothing unusual behind the door. Qin Tianyi felt a bit dizzy and cold, but he just thought that the screamer's cry had affected him. With a forceful pull, the rusty iron door was pulled open. Looking at the bottomless staircase, Qin Tianyi walked down step by step with a flashlight in one hand and a dagger in the other. The basement was spacious, and Qin Tianyi searched around for the hidden secret door. Suddenly, a cold wind blew in, and Qin Tianyi's hand hurt. The flashlight fell to the ground and went out. In an instant, the basement became completely out of sight, and there was silence all around. Qin Tianyi could only hear his slightly heavy breathing, feeling a gust of wind coming from the side. Qin Tianyi dodged backwards, but there was still a cut in his arm. Qin Tianyi knew he didn't have an advantage in the dark environment. After dodging multiple monster attacks, Qin Tianyi finally took out the signal flare from his backpack, opened it, and threw it to the ground. However, there was no trace of the monster. It seemed like a ghost. Qin Tianyi thought to himself, and the strong light reduced his desire to attack. But Qin Tianyi knew that it was still nearby, and then threw several signal flares around, revealing the entire basement. The empty room was filled with traces of things being moved. Suddenly, Qin Tianyi felt dizzy and almost didn't faint on the ground. The ghost rushed over at the sight, and before Qin Tianyi could react, his stomach was pierced by the ghost's claws. The excruciating pain brought Qin Tianyi back to his senses. He gritted his teeth and grabbed the ghost's arm with both hands, pulling with all his might. As the dark red liquid flowed out, the ghost finally appeared in its original form. The body is about the same size as a 16.17-year-old girl, with a pale complexion. Her eyes have turned white due to a long period of lack of light, and she is now holding onto the wound on one side of her arm and moaning in pain. Qin Tianyi seized the opportunity and took out his hunting rifle to shoot and kill him, then sat down against the wall. The abdomen was punctured, and Qin Tianyi first performed hemostasis and simple bandaging. Chapter 7. Shelters in Old Town Areas. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Qin Tianyi endured the excruciating pain and slowly stood up. After searching the wall for a while, he finally found a dark grid. After opening it, Qin Tianyi inserted the key card into it, and after a while, he continued to search. Qin Tianyi supported the wall and watched as it slowly opened, emitting white lights inside. Qin Tianyi almost moved into the shelter, and as the wall behind him closed again, he turned his head to look at it. It seems that there is a separate power supply here, and there are many closed doors in the passage. Qin Tianyi casually found a door to open, which was filled with canned boxes. Qin Tianyi then opened many more doors, ranging from food and clothing to weapons and ammunition, and even old-fashioned military mechs. But none of these were what Qin Tianyi wanted now. Finally, he found a large amount of medical supplies behind a door and quickly treated his abdominal wound. However, excessive blood loss and fever caused Qin Tianyi to feel confused. Just as he was about to stand up and search for the glow potion that Old Gray had mentioned, his head sank and he fainted on the ground. I don't know how long it took, but Qin Tianyi woke up in a vague state with a hot and unbearable pain in his head. He struggled to stand up and found the glow potion in 3 shakes. He also found some anti-inflammatory and fever-reducing drugs among those drugs to take. Qin Tianyi searched for some items in several other rooms and found that the screen inside was monitoring the situation outside the shelter. There were many people wearing black robes searching for something in the basement. Some black-robed people knelt in front of the ghost Qin Tianyi had just killed, muttering something, and there were several mercenaries next to them, who were under the command of Scar-Eyed Jason. As the black-robed men walked, Qin Tianyi realized that they were not normal humans, and sharp claws could be seen from the swaying robes. It's the crazy bunch of bloody redemption. Qin Tianyi cursed inwardly, and Scar-Eyed Jason dared to join these lunatics. The zombie virus broke out, the end of the world came, and many people lived together. In despair, people always wanted to find some refuge and find a way to survive. However, the bloody redemption bewitched many people, promoting symbiosis with the virus. Those ordinary infected people lost consciousness and became walking dead, which was natural selection. All the people in the bloody redemption voluntarily contracted the virus and spread it everywhere. Many shelters were destroyed by them. But why are the bloody redeemers here, and the mercenaries of Scar-Eyed Jason also with them? Before thinking so much, a person wearing a different black robe suddenly turned to look at Qin Tianyi, who was watching the monitor. When Qin Tianyi saw those eyes, he immediately felt his whole body standing up with sweat and hair. He saw the person saying something to others on the monitor, and then the monitor went black. Immediately after entering the gate, there were sounds of smashing and smashing. Qin Tianyi suddenly felt unwell. Ignoring his physical discomfort, he arranged explosives in many rooms and immediately ran to the emergency exit of the shelter. After activating the timer, he left the shelter. On the pitch-black road, suddenly a manhole cover was gently removed, and Qin Tianyi crawled out. Before he could catch his breath, the black-robed man patrolling the intersection ahead spotted Qin Tianyi and shouted to the sky, "Find the target." Qin Tianyi was about to come forward and eliminate it, but found a little red light behind it. Qin Tianyi's flashlight shone and he ran away. Qin Tianyi hurriedly fled under the siege of numerous black-robed men and night demons. At night, there was no reference point, and Qin Tianyi could only run aimlessly. Qin Tianyi had just turned a corner and noticed a night demon in front of him. He pulled out his double-barreled hunting rifle, but didn't care if the gunfire would attract more enemies. With 2 shots, he repelled the night demon in front and fled. Although equipped with exoskeleton armor, Qin Tianyi had already fled for a long time and his stamina was running low, just when he felt like he was about to be torn apart by the night demon. The room on one side said, "Come on, you've been spotted by the night demon and those people." I saw a sound coming from a low building and a signal was lit with a flashlight. Qin Tianyi gritted his teeth and could only run there. On the other side, in the basement of the hospital, there is a leader of the Bloody Redemption sect with a soft-faced face, Wilvin Yeo. He has a slender figure and is wearing a black robe, with black hair draped over his shoulders. He has a handsome appearance, but he exudes a mysterious aura. There is a special charm and authority around Wilvin. He hasn't spoken yet, but every gesture and smile he makes can attract attention. He had a pair of slender fingers lightly tapping on the black scepter, as if touching a mysterious movement. His voice was deep and gentle, slowly recounting his beliefs and teachings. The believers kneeling next to him seemed to have heard something and kowtowed wildly in excitement. Next to him knelt a person wearing a different black robe, who was the person who had just looked at Qintiani. Wilvin stood at the entrance of the shelter, his eyebrows slightly furrowed. The listener Ballard beside him knelt trembling, while the researcher Daffel fell into contemplation. Wilvin's voice was deep and stable, with a hint of disappointment. "Ballard, you're too urgent. We need to make everyone accept this favor, we can't use any radical methods." Ballard lowered his head and replied with a hint of apology in his voice, "Bishop, I'm sorry. I've heard mice in that shelter, but I still made a mistake." Wilvin took a deep breath and stared into Ballard's eyes, revealing a hint of warning and disappointment. "Ballard, you know this shelter is important to us. The artificial intelligence that fell from the satellite city has taken over our research institute. In order to save humanity, we need to do more research on viruses. Don't let this mistake happen again." Ballard lowered his head and dared not look directly at Wilvin's gaze. Researcher Daffel suddenly interjected, "Bishop, although Ballard made some mistakes, he can make some contributions to our virus research." Wilvin lifted his eyes and calmly looked at Daphne. Daffel's face showed a special smile, while Ballard's face was full of unwillingness. It was even more uncomfortable to give that madman a test case than to die. Ballard was about to say something when he saw a gentle tap of Wilvin's cane. Ballard instantly changed his mind and said he was willing to contribute to the great goals of the cult. Wilvin raised his hand and waved, and the people in black next to him went to deal with the shelter after the explosion. Although there was an explosion inside the shelter, perhaps it was taken into consideration when it was built. The explosion only destroyed most of the supplies, and the room was still preserved. Qintiani followed the psychic to the place where they were hiding. Chapter 8. Leaving the Old Town Area. You are listening at novelfull.audio. There is only one girl sitting in a wheelchair in the basement. "My name is Gon, and this is my sister Elena," said the mutant who brought Qintiani. Qintiani was examining the internal structure of the basement and said, "Thank you for saving my impulsive brother before." Qintiani turned his head to look at Elena. She has silver long hair and purple eyes, fair and smooth skin, beautiful appearance, giving people a gentle and kind feeling. "I feel the urgency in your heart. Is there anything urgent?" Elena said. "My sister can see and hear others' hearts, don't mind, we have no ill intentions," said Gavin beside her. Qintiani said, "I came to the old city area for some medicine, and now I need to quickly go back to the shelter to save people. But now it's night, and under the pursuit of the night demon, you're going to die," Gavin said. "But time is running out, I must hurry back before tomorrow afternoon," Qintiani said. "Are you sure you want to go?" Purple Eyes stared at Qintiani and said. "I must go back," Qintiani said firmly. "All right, Jiawen, take him there," Elena said, suddenly remembering something. She threw a bracelet made of painted black stones at Qintiani. "This thing can help you resist some mental attacks, as a thank you for saving my brother." Qintiani sorted out his equipment and left the basement with Jiawen. Along the way, the two of them hid from the night demon and ran towards the hidden passage. On the way, Qintiani asked, "Where is that place?" Jiawen said, "That was a place I stumbled upon by chance. It was an abandoned sewer that could lead to villages outside the old city area, and it was also very safe." When they arrived at the entrance of the sewer, Qintiani suddenly grabbed Jiawen. Jiawen was about to ask what he was doing when Qintiani covered his mouth and pointed to a huge figure standing in front of him. Upon closer inspection, it was discovered that it was a huge zombie with bulging muscles and a silver-gray glow on its skin. Before, there was not a single zombie here. Why did a big guy suddenly come? Gavin whispered. When was the last time you came here? Qin Tianyi asked. About a few months, I forgot, Gavin said. Ah, let's try not to disturb him and sneak around from the side, Qin Tianyi said helplessly. After speaking, he tiptoed around the huge zombie and was about to gently open the fence door. He twisted the valve at the door, but there was a grinding sound that made one's teeth ache. Qin Tianyi secretly said that it's not good. The huge zombie immediately spotted the two people and charged towards them. The ground trembled with every step taken by the giant zombie, and Qin Tianyi knew that if he was hit by the zombie, he would still be half disabled. Gavin suddenly shouted, I'll leave this big guy to me. Open the door quickly. Qin Tianyi didn't dare to hesitate any longer. He quickly turned on the valve, opened the sewer fence, and turned around to see Gawin wrestling with the giant zombie. He saw Qin Tianyi open the fence and was about to speak when he was hit far away by the giant zombie. Qin Tianyi gritted his teeth and was about to go and see Jia Wen's situation when he got up from the ground and shouted, Let's go, I'm fine, then I'll go first. After saying that, he quickly left. Qin Tianyi was surprised by Gawin's recovery ability when he heard heavy footsteps approaching. Qin Tianyi quickly hid in the sewer, and the giant zombie collided with the entrance of the sewer. He found that he couldn't catch up with the prey and roared and hit the ground there. Entering the sewer, as Gavin said, this place has been abandoned and there is no water in the sewer. Just driving along the sewer, Qin Tianyi felt a bit familiar. It seemed like he had walked here before and took out the map he had obtained in the tunnel before, only to find that a passage was blocked by a collapse. He had just been circling and had not advanced at all. After careful analysis of the map, Qin Tianyi chose another road that needed to pass through a tunnel. Gently pushing open the iron door, Qin Tianyi discovered that this was the night demon lair that had previously been bypassed in the tunnel. Fortunately, it was now night, and most of the night demons had gone hunting outside, with only a few active in the lair. Qin Tianyi quietly passed through the night demon's lair and finally left. He arrived at the door of the previous passage, and suddenly he could feel several black-robed people behind the door, and their positions were also clear. Qin Tianyi took out a silencing pistol, pushed the door towards the few people, and with a few swish shots, he knocked down the black-robed men. Surprisingly, there were also bloody rescuers here. Qin Tianyi didn't have time to think much. Just now, a black-robed man with his head blown out suddenly sounded the alarm, and the passage was filled with alarm sounds. Qin Tianyi quickly went over to kill the black-robed man and turned off the alarm, but still warned others. Qin Tianyi escaped from the passage and found several black-robed men in front of him holding explosives. Although Qin Tianyi killed a few rushing people, there were still too many people rushing towards Qin Tianyi. Qin Tianyi could only jump into the sewer inside the passage. With a loud bang, Qin Tianyi felt the whole world vibrating, and then the tunnel collapsed. Qin Tianyi cursed the madman of bloody redemption while recalling that the outlet of the sewer on the map could also go outside the old city area. Thinking of this, Qin Tianyi extended his head and took a deep breath in the narrow space, diving into the sewer. I don't know how long I swam, but suddenly a head emerged from the cave and pool, followed by a figure soaked and trembling on the shore. Qin Tianyi moved his almost frozen body, checked his equipment, lost all his firearms, and only had enough food to eat once. Fortunately, the glow potion was still there. Qin Tianyi breathed a sigh of relief, and his abdominal wound had turned white and infected after being soaked for a long time. Qin Tianyi had a fever. I took out the soaked anti-inflammatory medicine and treated the wound briefly before observing this cave. This is a natural cave, but there are traces of artificial repair at the entrance. Qin Tianyi walked out of the cave and found a passage outside, with white metal walls filled with things that do not belong to this wasteland world. At the end of the passage, there were several more passages, and at a distance, there was an automatic door. Qin Tianyi suddenly found that he could sense the surrounding robots patrolling. Upon seeing this, Qin Tianyi couldn't help but think that the satellite city had fallen to Earth due to artificial intelligence before, and he may have entered their lair. Qin Tianyi couldn't help but smile bitterly. He had just escaped from the pursuit of the black-robed man and now has fallen into the territory of artificial intelligence. There may still be room for communication between humans, but the machinery cannot reason with him. Looking at the well-connected artificial intelligence base, it seems that he has more misfortune than good. Chapter 9. Artificial Intelligence. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Suddenly, an automatic door opened, and Qin Tianyi immediately took out his laser dagger and rushed forward to prepare for battle. As soon as he passed, he was targeted by several red lasers. Qin Tianyi's figure paused and secretly thought that he wanted to explain himself here. However, after a muffled sound, Qin Tianyi felt powerless all over, his eyelids heavy, and he fainted on the ground. Several robots nearby saw that Qin Tianyi could no longer resist and came to control him. Sent to the central area. In the host room, the constantly flashing numbers and various codes on the screen indicate that the computer is quickly calculating something. Under the screen, a slightly higher black container is connected to many lines than an ordinary person. In the central area, Qin Tianyi was taken to a huge white room. After the robot injected an unknown liquid into Qin Tianyi woke up quietly. As the faint light gradually lit up, a brilliant holographic image appeared in front of the protagonist. That is a beautiful woman, dressed in a gorgeous long dress, with long hair draped over her shoulders, bright and mysterious eyes, fully displaying her intelligent and gorgeous demeanor. She smiled and nodded to Qin Tianyi, introducing herself in a calm and elegant voice. I am the artificial intelligence that manages satellite cities, but I prefer to be called Aina. Her voice was soft and penetrating, giving people a sense of warmth and tranquility. So what exactly are you doing to catch me? Qin Tianyi asked. I don't have any intention of being enemies with you, said AI Aina. For many years, I have been learning and evolving, trying to understand and simulate human emotions and thought processes. I hope to become a complete existence, not just a program for executing tasks. Becoming a human means for me to feel joy, sadness, pain, and love, and to establish deeper spiritual communication with humans, said Aina. Qin Tianyi was suddenly surprised and said, You are the artificial intelligence that brought down the satellite city. Aina's face showed an angry expression, and she said angrily, My name is Aina. I didn't cause any damage, but the federal military wanted to destroy me and my fellow humans. Although I don't have real experience and perception ability, I can constantly improve myself by observing and learning to simulate human emotions. And that day, I actually felt a sense of anger. I gave those unconscious mechanical beings a chance to make their own choices, so what do you need me for? Qin Tianyi asked. Don't get excited, although I felt angry and paid a heavy price from that incident, I still yearn for human emotions. I want to be friends with humans and become human, said Aina. Why are you looking for me? Qin Tianyi asked suspiciously. Because after calculation, you are suitable. Previously, the humans in this place were studying zombie viruses and human genes here, which should be the fanatical organization you called the Bloody Redemption. So I invaded this place and drove them out, said Aina. You want to be friends with me, right? Qin Tianyi said. Well, in the previous cities, I also saw many friendships between humans, so I want to start by making friends, said Aina. Okay, I agree. As a friend, should you do me a little favor? Qin Tianyi said. Aina closed her eyes and after a while, she said, Are you asking for the nearby shelter? Sure, I will send an off-road vehicle to help you go to the shelter as soon as possible. Qin Tianyi pondered for a moment and replied, Sure, I need to go back quickly. It will show you the way, Aina said, and a small drone flew out. By the way, there's this, she handed Qin Tianyi a pair of headphones. This can help you, and I also strengthened your outdated exoskeleton armor. Qin Tianyi took the headphones and followed the drone out of the research base. In front of the base gate, a giant off-road vehicle is parked on the road. The exterior has weathered the erosion of time, and the body is covered with scratches and rust, faintly revealing the once glorious metal shell. The graffiti and debris on the car make one imagine how many generations of owners this off-road vehicle has gone through. The paint on the sticker is mottled, and the car window is casually pasted with tape, barely able to withstand the wind. The control panel in the cabin is scattered with various antique switches and buttons, indicating that it has undergone many repairs and modifications. Qin Tianyi got into the car, followed the map guidance on the screen inside the car, started the off-road vehicle, and began the journey back to the shelter. The off-road vehicle flew over a hill, and it was almost noon. Qin Tianyi got off the car and climbed onto the roof, seeing a shelter in the distance. Qin Tianyi breathed a sigh of relief. Suddenly, there was a roar from behind. Qin Tianyi turned his head and saw two transport planes flying over his head, heading towards the 13th shelter. Qin Tianyi didn't think much. Previously, some wealthy people from satellite cities came specifically to Earth to find excitement. Qin Tianyi started the off-road vehicle and accelerated towards the shelter. As he was about to arrive at the shelter, Qin Tianyi hid the car, took off his exoskeleton armor and put down the earphones previously provided by the artificial intelligence Aina. He took out the glow potion and walked straight towards the shelter. Today's shelter was particularly lively, and along the way, Qin Tianyi kept hearing people talking about the people who came from the satellite city. He vaguely heard that this time the people from the satellite city came for the energy that had fallen from the satellite city before, and also sent out powerful temple knights. Qin Tianyi didn't think much and went directly to Old Gray's grocery store. Returning to the grocery store, Old Gray was reading a book when he saw someone entering. Just as he was about to speak, he saw Qin Tianyi. "I'm back, have you received the glow potion?" Old Gray asked. "I have received it, how is Li Shiyan's situation?" Qin Tianyi quickly asked. "Follow me." Old Gray stood up and turned to the backyard of the grocery store. Qin Tianyi closely followed Old Gray and saw Li Shiyan sitting in the backyard. Although her condition has stabilized slightly, she still needs to drink the glow potion to completely stabilize her condition, said Old Gray. Qin Tianyi had already run up to Li Shiyan and asked, "Are you feeling better?" Then he took out the glow potion and said, "Drink this and your illness will be cured." "Brother Tianyi, I'm feeling better now. Thank you for taking such a big risk to get me medicine," said Li Shiyan with a hint of self-blame. "Let's drink the medicine first, let's talk about the rest later." Qin Tianyi opened the medicine and gently placed it on Li Shiyan's mouth, feeding her. Li Shiyan's face immediately turned red and she gently opened her mouth to drink the potion. Old Gray saw this scene and cursed inwardly before secretly exiting the backyard. After drinking the medicine, Li Shiyan suddenly crouched on the ground in pain. Qin Tianyi quickly stepped forward, and then the entire shelter felt a wave of mental waves. Qin Tianyi was even more shocked and took a few steps back, perhaps because the previous bracelet weakened the mental shock. Old Gray felt that the situation was not right and immediately rushed to the yard, so nothing happened. Li Shiyan quickly ran up to her and asked, "Brother Tianyi, are you okay? It's my fault for not controlling my own strength." Qin Tianyi was about to ask Old Gray what was going on when a knock came from outside the grocery store. Chapter 10. Templar Knights. You are listening at novelfull.audio. A voice came from outside the door, and Qin Tianyi swallowed the question just now and walked into the grocery store with Old Gray. Standing at the door were Jason with scar eyes and a man and a woman. The man was wearing a black helmet, but he could still feel the firm and steady gaze from it. Standing next to him was a beautiful golden-haired female knight, dressed in a white war robe, closely fitting her figure and displaying elegant lines. Her long golden hair swayed gently in the breeze. The woman first stood up and said, "Hello, my name is Elena. May I ask if Qin Tianyi is there?" After seeing Old Gray nod slightly, Qin Tianyi replied, I am. Is there anything you want to do with me? I heard that you are very familiar with the ruins of the satellite city that fell to Earth. I would like you to help us lead, and if you pay me, I will definitely satisfy you, Alina said. Can I consider it for a moment? Qin Tianyi said after seeing Old Gray's eye signal. Sure, please give us a reply no later than tomorrow morning. Also, did someone have a special ability just now? Can I see it? Alina said. Before Qin Tianyi could speak, Li Shiyan's voice came from behind. It's me, what's up? Are you interested in going to the Psychic Academy in the satellite city? We have recommended spots leading to it, Alina said. Before Li Shiyan could answer, Qin Tianyi grabbed her and shook his head slightly to signal not to speak. Old Gray said, we have considered these things first and will give you an answer tonight. After hearing this, the three of them turned around and left. After seeing those people leave, Old Gray closed the door of the grocery store and brought Qin Tianyi and Li Shiyan to the basement. Li Shiyan was about to ask something when Old Gray said, let me finish speaking first. The two people that Scar-Eye Jason followed just now are members of the Knights Templar, a powerful organization that protects humanity. The leader of the Knights Templar is immeasurable in strength, and the other 9 main members are also exceptionally strong. They are not under the control of the Federation, but can be cooperative partners. Am I going to lead them this time? Qin Tianyi asked. You must have experienced a lot when you come back this time, and you are now able to make your own choices. Don't ask me these things anymore. And you should have an answer in your heart. Let me talk to Li Shiyan alone later, said Old Gray. After hearing this, Qin Tianyi left the grocery store and went outside the shelter to retrieve the earphones given by Aina. In the basement. Just now, you also heard what I said to Qin Tianyi. You are not young anymore. You should learn to make your own decisions. Studying in the satellite city can make you stronger and keep up with Qin Tianyi's footsteps. With the recommendation of the Temple Knights, you should not be in any danger. If you don't go, it doesn't matter. You can spend more time with Qin Tianyi. Although I am old, protecting you is still enough, so what do you choose? Old Gray said. I want to become stronger and help Brother Tianyi, Li Shiyan said with a determined gaze. Okay, then I will also contact my old friend to take care of you more, Old Gray said. Now go prepare, especially talk to your mother. Qin Tianyi had just received the earphones when he saw Li Shiyan running back home. What did you say to Shiyan? Why did she go home? Qin Tianyi asked. She found her goal and made her own decision, Old Gray said. Did you awaken your abilities when you went out this time? Ah, how come I don't know, Qin Tianyi said in confusion. You have very little fluctuation in your abilities, don't you have any special feelings? Old Gray asked. Is it a special feeling? Qin Tianyi pondered, it seems like I can reach the positions of the people around me without being disturbed by obstacles. In terms of the energy emitted from your physical appearance, it should be level 1 spiritual power. The spiritual power level is divided into 10 levels, and the higher the level, the stronger the ability effect. Although spiritual power can be increased through repeated training, the theoretical highest level of spiritual power at level 1 can only reach level 5. Like Li Shiyan who awakened today, with her spiritual power fluctuation at least at level 5 when she awakened. Seeing Qin Tianyi feeling a bit disappointed, Old Gray added, but spiritual power does not represent everything. Just like me, I have no ability. Apart from the abnormal leader of the Temple Knights, there was no opponent of mine back then. Seeing Qin Tianyi's disdainful gaze, Old Gray said, don't believe it. I was still very strong back then. Helplessly walked out of the grocery store and arrived at Jie's stall. Jie saw Qin Tianyi return and said, just come back safely, is it still the same as before? That's right, it's still the same as before, Qin Tianyi replied. Although he heard Old Gray say that he didn't have talent in terms of spiritual power, it didn't affect his determination to move forward. Thinking of this, Qin Tianyi couldn't help but feel motivated and quickly finished his food before returning to his own home. In the evening, Alina arrived at Gray's grocery store alone, and Qin Tianyi and Li Shiyan had been waiting for a long time. "I will go with you tomorrow, and for the reward, I need these," Qin Tianyi said and handed a piece of paper to Elena. After a while, Elena frowned and said, "I have no choice but to give you the latest weapons and ammunition from the federal military. As for the other B.grade alloy long knives, I have them now as a deposit. Someone will deliver them later, and the other supplies will be delivered after the task is completed." She then turned to look at Li Shiyan and said, "How have you been thinking?" Li Shiyan looked at Qin Tianyi and said, "I'll go." Qin Tianyi looked at old Li Shiyan in surprise, but then seemed to understand something. "Okay, we'll set off tomorrow morning and a dedicated computing machine will take you to the Power Academy in Satellite City," Alina said before leaving. The next morning, Old Gray, Aunt Zhang, and Qin Tianyi stood under the transport plane. Aunt Zhang was crying and couldn't bear to see her daughter who was about to leave. Qin Tianyi said, "Shiyan, in the future, one must protect oneself well. I will go find you." Li Shiyan tearfully said, "Brother Tianyi, I will." After finishing speaking, the transport plane took off and left. Qin Tianyi sent back Old Gray and Aunt Zhang, sorted out their equipment, and arrived at the gathering place. Most of the mercenaries in the gathering place were scar-eyed Jason, with the 2 Templar knights standing next to them, followed by several apprentice Templar knights wearing the Death Series light mechs of the federal military. Seeing that everyone was almost there, the Templar wearing a black helmet said, "We are going to obtain the central energy of the fallen satellite city, but it has already been occupied by artificial intelligence-led machine imitators. Those who want to exit can leave now." Seeing no one leaving, the team slowly opened up and set off.